2014, majoring in biology, and so she's going to speak to us a little bit about what it is to help people without even being a doctor. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Lika. Hi, everyone. Yes. So happy to be back here. Bruins, I remember this is where I had my first AMSA meeting back in 2010, and it's so glad to see everybody here still this much later. So I'm here, I just had to tell you a little bit more about myself. I did come to UCLA, I was a bio major, and once I graduated, I took a gap year and I did a post-bac program at Cal State LA. Now, for those of you who are in the medical process or about to graduate, if you're considering a gap year, I definitely recommend. It's a great opportunity to kind of refresh your mind from what the hectic life of UCLA. But during my post-bac, I realized that it was a lot of studying. Usually post-bacs require students to just study. They don't allow you to do anything else. So no jobs, no extracurricular activities, nothing. They want you in the classroom getting the best grades you possibly can, which ended up being a great thing for me. But it also helped me realize that if being a doctor was just about studying and being in the classroom, that's not what I wanted to do. And really, I started to realize, the pre-med path and becoming a doctor is a long path, right? So this is a flow chart I actually found online this morning that talks, look at it. This is the flow chart about being a doctor. Pre-med, medical school, US Step 1, medical school MS M4, US M2, internship year, Step 3, internship year again, residency, and then board certifications. So I was thinking, if I have to wait until I pass my board examinations, which was going to be in about 7 years when I can actually be certified to helping people and actually at that point feel some sense of gratification, that's a long time to wait. And honestly, why couldn't I start feeling that sense of gratification and start helping people here, or at that step, or at that step? Or even during my post-bac year. Why was it so miserable? So I'm here to show you how you can start combining that sense of community engagement that a lot of physicians require and really are in the community all the time, and being a doctor at the same time while doing your undergrad year. So first of all, let's dissect what actually being a doctor is, okay? So doctors, they consult patients, right? That's when we think of doctors, that's the first thing we think about. Doctors are advocates for patients. They speak on behalf of healthcare needs, just as activities like lobby day, and get things passed. Doctors also administer medication or do surgical procedures and things like that on people, right? So most of our lives here in undergrad and in post-bac and in med school is training to become a doctor. But when do we ever get trained to work with the people? Now, if we get rid of the people side of being a doctor, now are they really doctors? Or are they just people as well that require doctors? So if we start thinking about this, and we spend half our lives, majority of our lives, dedicated to learning the medical procedures of how to become a doctor, when are we going to start thinking about the people side of it, the community side of it? And I'm here to tell you that it's about time we start working on that now. Not tomorrow, not after you get into med school, now. And medical schools are starting to realize that people and pre-med applicants who are well-versed in both sides of the community-doctor relationships are actually stronger candidates. I pulled this off of US World News just this morning, and I'm going to read this to you just because it's so powerful. So this is Brandon Hunter, Director of Admissions at Morehouse School of Medicine. He says, it shows that you have, volunteering shows that you have interest in just serving others. If a prospective student is able to become a leader within the volunteer organization, that's also a plus. When you look at hospitals, typically the physicians are the leaders. You guys all want to be physicians here, right? Or go into the healthcare field? Have you ever thought of the leadership side of being a physician? Now that's an interesting question, and something we're going to explore some more. So if communities and doctors are one, Communities and doctors are intertwined and depend on each other to actually, gain more healthful communities. Let's start working on both and getting this to be a great relationship. So my goal of my presentation is to show you how you can use your unique skills to engage the community in meaningful ways in order to become that well-rounded applicant to medical school and eventually physician. So when we think about volunteering, first of all, what are the first things that come to our head? Lika, what do you think?
Helping?
Okay, helping, maybe donating blood, maybe giving to the community, maybe donating your old clothes, maybe going to the hospital on Saturday mornings and donating your time there, right? Well, I'm here to tell you that all these methods are great forms of community service, but they're very passive. They're just doing work for somebody else and then leaving. Now, is the problem still there after you leave? Most of the time, yes, right? So I call this form of community volunteering zombie-like. You go, it comes in spurts, it's unsustainable, and most of the time very ineffective. And most of the time ends up capitulating the same problem over and over and over again, where the people you're actually helping are not actually being helped because they need help once again. We need to get away from this form of community service and start thinking about something new. So pre-meds, let's take your head out of your books. Let's stop it. Keep studying. Don't lose your classes. But let's start thinking about making a change now. So we're all physicians. We all are future physicians here. But on a more general level, we all have something else in common. Who here was born in the late 80s or early 90s? Yeah? Okay, so the majority of people here. So our generation we are actually called the millennial generation. Have you heard that term before? Okay. Have you heard what a positive connotation the millennials bring? Not really, right? So actually, in 2014, Time magazine came up with an article calling the millennial generation the me generation. The most self-absorbed, unemployed, most educated generation that's predicted to make less money than their parents and also have a lower life expectancy than the previous generations. Yet, besides all that, we are the most giving generation up to date. We have heart. We care. We think we can make a difference, and we're going to make a difference. Okay, who here thinks they can make a difference? Yes? All your hands should be up. Great. You guys are going to be awesome doctors and are perfect millennials as well. So if we're going to start thinking about millennials and reviving community service, we need a new philosophy, a new way of thinking about it. I call that model community service the millennial way. Something totally different. So usually our typical sense of community service involves giving, involves donating money to a cause. Now I challenge you as a millennial, as a future physician, to take it one step further. Instead of giving money and never seeing where it goes, why don't we invest? Let's see what happens with that money. Instead of just serving the community, instead of just passing out water at a hospital, why don't we take it a step further and engage? Let's make the program, everything happen a little more personal, have a little bit more oomph to it. Instead of simply connecting to people at social environments and maybe shaking their hand, maybe knowing their name for a while, but then forgetting, let's network with them. And come on, at this day and age, that's the essence of who we are. Social media has made it not only just such an easy thing, but almost habitual. So the community service, the millennial way. So when we start thinking about doing this new form of community service, the term community service goes way out the window. Now I want to challenge you to think about community engagement. Now the one thing difference between community service, which is the one-way zombie-like track, and community engagement is that all of a sudden we're changing the perspective of how we're helping people. Why don't we work together to collectively shape public life? That means bringing people from different backgrounds who have different strengths and using that to further one communal goal. All right, you guys see this rock here? So this is actually in Milwaukee where this big, it's not a rock, it's a boulder, and was in the middle of the park. Now this roadway was very important. There's a lot of bike riders that going through the street and they needed to get rid of it. Well, let's imagine that this boulder was on Bruin Walk. Let's just imagine this huge boulder on Bruin Walk and we needed to get around it, of course, and that was the only way we can get through campus. That's it. Let's bring our whole undergrad community together and get that rock out. Maybe the engineers can design some sort of pulley system to get it out. Maybe the English majors can write some sort of petition to get help. Maybe the athletes can use their strength to move it. Now, what are all the pre-meds going to do? Oh no, I can't help because I'm not a doctor. I can't help people. No. We all have other strengths. But as I talk to pre-med students, a lot of times, we tend to be overshadowed by the fact that, yeah, I'm a physician, I'm a caring person, and I like to help people, but wait, I can't help you right now. I don't know any of that knowledge yet, which is fine, which is why we're going to dedicate our entire lives to do that. But who are you other than a physician? What are your strengths past that? How can you use your strength to move that boulder and be part of the UCLA community? One of the best communities on earth. So, here to tell you, you don't have to wait to be a doctor to start helping people. And I'm going to show you how you can do it. So where do I start? So when I talk to a lot of pre-meds, I've given this speech all over SoCal a couple of times, and I always get questions. Where do I start, Jhaimy? I'm really passionate about helping people, but it's just kind of like a helping people stage. Where do I get to be specific? Well, let's use the Millennial Way as a guide. So I'm going to give you an examples of some sort of organizations that you should be keeping your eye out to look for that could be really helpful to have meaningful experiences. Where all of a sudden you're not just a body. You're not just somebody who provides manual labor and just serves food. Anybody has two hands and can serve food. Anybody can just manually push something. But what can you provide as a person, as an individual now? Not when you're a physician, not 30 years later, to start changing the community. So first, we need to get away from the idea of giving. Giving is a one-way streak. Okay, I'm going to give you $5 and I walk away. Do I know what he's going to do with those $5? No. Let's invest. So companies have actually noticed that people tend to be very innately sympathetic towards other humans, which is a good thing. And we've all seen homeless people on the sides of the road like this who actually, have signs like this or oftentimes have maybe their cardboard house next to them or asking for food. And even though sometimes we stay calmly in our car and don't give them anything, I think it's safe to say that we kind of have that intuition to do something. It still brings us some sort of innate feeling to want to help people. Well, organizations in the nonprofit sector have started capitalizing on this feeling, and actually, instead of just asking people for donations of $5 to make a difference, they're asking people to donate their time and start investigating where that money goes to. Charity Water is a great example of this. Charity Water was actually founded by a bartender in New York City, who decided he did not want his life legacy to go down with making people drunk. So he created this organization centered in Kenya, Africa, where he noticed that a lot of people did not have access to fresh water, and he knew how to build these water pumps here. So he set up this whole organization where donors just like you or anyone else can go online, look at sites that need this water, pick the site that they wanted a water filter drilled, and actually fund that site themselves. So you're investing. Now, Charity Water would actually build the site and making sure it came to fruition, and then he goes one step further and he'll prove it to you. Engaging. He'll prove it to you by giving you a GPS coordinate map of the water pipe and showing you that people are actually using it. And to make this sustainable, he actually partners up with local organizations to making sure that this water pump survives, and this water pump is serving the need that you and your investment want it to serve it. That's networking. You see? So all of a sudden, we're not just giving him $500 and say, do whatever you want, I'm never going to hear from you. You're seeing the pump. You're seeing people actually using this water for greatness. So these are the type of organizations you need to start looking for. Okay? So next step. Instead of serving, instead of going to the hospital and serving water and leaving, let's start engaging. Go one step further. So the first part of engaging is using your strengths. Now, when I ask people what their strengths are, it's usually a hard question. It's a hard question to answer. It takes some reflection. So usually I ask something different. What are your talents? What are you even interested in? What is the one thing you can't live without? And research has shown that people who actually investigate their strengths and build on their strengths don't only live happier lives, but are actually more successful. Contrary to popular belief, building on your weaknesses is the worst bet you can make. Building on your strengths, now that's where you have the most potential for growth. Think about it. So in order to start using your strength, you need to change the perspective of how you help. Okay, I think we have all seen this. Anybody know what this is? It's a water pitcher, right? It's a typical water pitcher you would see at the hospital when we're all doing our volunteer hospital hours. Well, if you were doing the typical version of community service and you were just serving, you would just give people water. If you were shadowing a doctor and just serving, you would just listen. If you were doing the typical community service and just waiting for somebody to tell you what to do, you would just wait. But no, we're millennials. We do things differently, right? We engage. So instead of just pouring patients water, use pouring water as a way to talk to the patients, to engage with them, to get to know their story, get to know who you are. Then they'll be more comfortable telling you when something actually goes wrong and they need help. Instead of just listening when you're shadowing a doctor, why don't you research what the doctor's about? Maybe have some educated questions prepared. Be part of the conversation instead of just a shadow behind the physician. Instead of waiting and killing dead time during your shifts, why don't you think about ways of improvement, something that can be changed? And a lot of times you'd be surprised at how much these medical professionals actually appreciate and use fresh eyes of perspective. And you'd realize a lot of change can happen. A couple of years ago, I was volunteering at White Memorial Medical Center, and one of my friends, he was volunteering in telemetry, and he noticed that he had to keep running back and forth down to the volunteer department on the ground floor and telemetry department on the 6th floor just to communicate one message from a nurse to the director. Now that was taking up a lot of time. So he suggested, why don't we instill like a walkie-talkie system? I see the janitors and different service people have these all the time. Why don't we give them to the volunteers? We tried it out, one walkie-talkie at a time. And not only did it save time, but our customer satisfaction rates, customer meaning patient satisfaction rates in our department actually skyrocketed. All of a sudden, our department didn't have to spend time walking back and forth from the 6th floor all the way down to the 4th floor. We were communicating. We had this new form of technology that allowed us to actually spend more time with the patients. And they loved it. And that's now a program that's been instilled in all the departments and has actually really changed the satisfaction levels of our entire hospital. Now that one idea was created by a student. And I'm pretty sure you guys have all seen ways of improving things in the hospitals. And it just takes that one voice to see if it can make a difference. So let's keep going. So instead of connecting to people, instead of meeting people one time and shaking their hand and leaving, let's network. Let's use who they are to enhance who we are. What is your strength? What is my strength? Let's team together. Now, Taproot Foundation is actually one of my favorite foundations that really takes this idea to the core. They believe that, like all other organizations, specifically nonprofit organizations, they're businesses still. They require accountants, they require accountants, somebody to do their taxes, management, marketing. But a lot of the time, people who run nonprofits are not skilled in those areas. They have really great hearts and know how to reach out to the community, but they don't know how to do accounting. So nonprofits can actually go onto this website, post a project, and actually connect to a skilled volunteer. Not just any volunteer, a skilled volunteer. an accountant, let's say, who can donate their accounting skills to this nonprofit organization. All of a sudden, investing, and all of a sudden we get this, we can continue this, and everybody can start acting on their strengths to bring projects together. We get something called a pro bono nation, where all of a sudden everyone is using their strengths to collaborate and collectively shape public life. So now it's not just okay to be good. No, good plus good equals great. And that's when we're going to start making a difference. So this is a Millennial Way organization. So before I continue, I wanted to share actually one of my stories and how I actually came to be here, really, and speaking about community engagement. So when I was 15, I went to church, and my pastor was talking about an organization named Heifer International. Has anyone heard of that organization? No? Okay, well, it's an international organization that provides livestock for families in need. So instead of providing them a one-time meal that they'll eat and be hungry again, they'll provide them a cow or bees or a chicken. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. That's a cool idea. Maybe what if I buy a cow? I knew at the time that my biggest strength was my family. I have my dad has 7 brothers and sisters, and I'm the oldest grandchild, and I have 14 younger cousins. So I knew that they were my biggest strength and assets. So I decided when I was 15 years old to start just to buy a cow. And I called this initiative Operation Buy a Cow. Now you see in these pictures actually, so this is me, and this is my uncle and my aunt and my cousins here. And our first project at the time, all I knew about fundraising was yard sales. So we did yard sales, we did swap meets, and my goal was to buy that $500 cow. At that point, my cousins were still asking me where I was going to host the cow, or if it was going to stay in my room, or how I was going to put it on the airplane. But it wasn't, after I got through those questions, told them it wasn't even going to come to my house, it was just going to go to the people in need, they were a little bit more at peace with that. And I actually got the community involved, my church community and my neighbors, and they invested in the cause. And they donated their clothes, and they donated their time to come help us. The yard sale was one of our activities, but the most profitable activity was our tamale sale. Now, it was coming along the holidays, and I needed that extra $1,000 because that extra $300 is the first one got us $200. And so again, I decided to engage the community. Here's my aunt. This is a couple of ladies that live beside my grandma's house, and my grandma made a whole trail of different ways we can make tamales, and we worked together all weekend long, all Saturday and all Sunday, and at the end we made 72 dozen tamales. All right, that's dozen tamales. So that's a lot, and we ended up selling them. I sold them to my professors at school. I sold them to my dad's coworkers. I sold them to my aunt's coworkers, and at the end of this, we ended up making $1,320. Now that was enough for 2 cows. And at that time, that was my biggest accomplishment yet. And I was so happy to be able to provide that for someone else. But even more than that, I was more enthralled by the community that I had gained with my family and the fact that we were able to all work together for a cause. So I decided to do it again. And after 7 years of doing this project, of doing our tamale sales, doing our yard sales, Operation Buy a Cow has raised over $10,000 and bought over 20 cows. Now, I have never seen the cows or to be frank, the people who I've affected. But I know that in my community and the people who were in my project, just that feeling that we have within us has been more than enough. And because of this project, organizations like Bank of America actually recognized what we were doing and actually decided to showcase our efforts in one of their advertisements. And they actually placed these advertisements all around the Los Angeles area. And people from the community would go out and see them. But now they weren't seeing just strangers. They were seeing people who they knew. They were seeing myself and my grandma who went to church with them, who were neighbors with them, because we had all come together and did this. Now, because of this, I was able to go and be an intern. Here's me in my red volunteering shirt at a hospital, and they love my story too. And because of this, This is, networking. Now this hospital, I've been with this hospital for the past maybe 7 years because of this one story. And I know that this year, as I applied to medical school, they are my biggest advocates. And I am so proud to call them part of my community. So now I bring it over to you. How do you engage in your community? With this knowledge that you have now, with this way of thinking that as a millennial, as a pre-med, you don't have to wait, it's your responsibility to act. But just think about it. You guys are Bruins. You go to UCLA, the #1 applied school in the entire nation. Do you walk through Bruin Walk? Do you avoid Bruin Walk? Do you know what student organizations are doing? Be aware of what's going on. Be aware of an organization that's maybe not even created that needs your special niche. Why can't we do that? That's the millennial way. What about organizations such like Dance Marathon who throw on this huge ensemble? That's the millennial way. What about the ALS challenge that happened 2 summers ago where everybody was pouring ice buckets all over the head and engaging the entire country? Everyone did it. Sports teams did it. Kim Kardashian did it. Kermit the Frog did it. And at the end, this raised over $115 million. And most importantly, it kind of put ALS on the map. More people were turning to search and awareness went up, and $77 million went straight into research just in 1 year. Now that's an unprecedented amount of resources. Really the most resources ever given to an organization past a disaster relief. That's the millennial way. That's going past community service and doing something that's making a difference and engaging people all together. So you don't have to be a doctor to start helping people. So what am I doing now? Last summer, I started a nonprofit organization called Cars for Middle Schoolers. Now, Cars for Middle Schoolers, bringing this idea of community engagement, I coach middle schoolers to actually lead their own community initiatives. And you'd be surprised. Middle schoolers are tough. Last summer, I spoke to over 500 middle schoolers in different classrooms, advising them to and motivating, empowering them to use their strength to really apply to the community. And CARS actually stands for this 5-step program. Choose your strength, apply your strength, refine your strength, reflect upon your strength, and reach success. And these middle schoolers get it. I gave them worksheets just like this, where they were projecting what they were interested in, how they actually could start using it to affect the community. This student right here, her name was Kimberly. She liked to play the harp and the piano. That was her talent. So that's what she chose. She decided to apply it. She decided to teach her neighbors who were younger than her how to play the piano. And from there, she was going to refine it. She was going to advertise and get more people involved. And when she reflected upon that, she said, you know what, maybe I can go to an elementary school and do more. This Kimberly, when I met her, she was 11 years old. And having these thoughts at a young age, just the type of leadership that she has been able to build, I am so excited to see what she can do when she's 12, when she's 15, when she gets into college. Now, what do? A lot of middle schoolers have never really volunteered at all. So we hold monthly volunteer opportunities where they can come together and actually support one of their fellow middle schoolers in whatever initiative they want. So this is Ariana. Her strength was that she liked peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Something simple as that. So she decided that she wanted to help the homeless, and for 3 years in a row, she created 150 bags of homeless lunches to actually give to the homeless. This year, she is the president of her organization at her high school. And all these leadership skills she gained through this process. Now, this is Kyle. His strength was running. After the earthquake in Chile last summer, he decided he wanted to do something about it, and he was going to use his strength. So he organized a jogathon for the community. And he had all these people show up, and in that time, he fundraised $245. Something that if he wouldn't have had, imagine if he didn't do it, that money would have never been there. And he's 12 years old, guys. Now, this is Vanessa. She decided her strength was cooking. She hosted a breakfast fundraiser at her church and fundraised over $2,000 for an orphanage in Tijuana. These kids are not waiting to make a difference. Why are you? So there was actually a study done a couple of years ago at Penn University by Angela Duckworth on what makes people successful. Now, she analyzed people, first-year teachers, winners of the spelling bee, first-year cadets, CEOs of companies, wealth management consultants, and she realized that the one trait they had in common, it wasn't that they were wealthy, it wasn't that they had the highest IQ, it wasn't even that they had the most opportunities. The one thing that these successful people had is that they had grit. Now, grit is defined as passion and perseverance for long-term goals. It's like determination on steroids. It's like having your goal in mind and going after it with everything you possibly can. Or, as I tell my middle schoolers, it's like the Bear Grylls of persistence. If you have to build a house, you build a house. If you have to go through ice-cold snow, you go through ice-cold snow. If you have to drink your own pee, you distill it first, then you drink it. But nothing gets in your way of reaching that goal. And as pre-med students, to get through that long path, oh my goodness, you are going to need some grit. And your grittiness will be tested every step of the way. With every physics exam, with every graduation year, with every application, your persistence and dedication to your goal will be tested. Now, my grittiness was tested just last summer when I took the MCAT. I got to tell you, I took Princeton, I took Kaplan, I did group tutoring, I did private tutoring, I did online tutoring, everything I possibly could. But that test is tough. And I took the old one, and I didn't do so well. So I decided to take it again. I took Swartwood. You guys know Swartwood, and it's true, he's amazing. And I actually teamed up with a learning coach, and I was able to control my anxiety and get everything done. And I'm proud to say that I'm ready to apply this cycle. And that brings me a lot of joy to tell you guys that. Believe me, it really does. So as we are preparing to be doctors, we're all after that white coat, that label of becoming a physician. But really think about who's beneath the physician, who's beneath that white coat. Who's that person that's helping people? Now, the white coat's going to be given to you once you get accepted into med school, once you're in med school, but you are creating the person beneath the white coat every single day. So if you want to become that holistic physician, the physician and the patient, not just the physician, then I think it's a great way to start doing community service, the millennial way. And remember, in the end, the best part of community service is when you leave UCLA, you're not going to remember all the classes you took, all the exams, all the late night studies. You're going to remember the people who were there with you, people who worked for a common goal. Those are the memories you need. Because when you're working with a patient, they're not going to ask you, what grade did you get in chemistry? They're going to notice your genuine kindness and your ability to talk about to understand and be empathetic to their issues. You don't need to wait to be a doctor to start helping people. Thanks, guys. Oh. Does anyone have any questions? Do we have time?
Yeah, we have time for
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. There are shy crowds.
Or not questions. It's okay. Yeah.
Did you ever consider, instead of maybe going to med school, going more on the nonprofit side, seeing what you can contribute there instead of being an actual doctor?
I have, and that's actually a big struggle that I come with every day. But I realized that I'm combining the two things, and my goal is to host my own clinic and have my nonprofit parlaying with the clinic and do that side by side. Definitely the nonprofit side is a great sector to go into, but unfortunately, the more I've been learning about it, there's also a lot of need for professional skilled professionals, people who have a lot of knowledge and then can counterpart that. So I think that if I really want to help people and go all the way, that's the way to do it. Plus, I'm having a lot of fun these 2 years working with these kids. And the nonprofit set, and this summer we're actually taking it one step further. We're actually creating a gritty community lab where I took 10 middle schoolers and like really showing them how to run their own community service projects. So like fundraising, outreach, how to make your own website, public speaking, everything you need to know of how to run your own service project. Yeah. I think we're good.
All right. If anyone has questions and they want to come up and ask, that's fine. Can we get another round of applause?
Thanks, guys.